Jiho stood at attention near the back wall of the grand hall. His dark blue uniform felt stiff and uncomfortable. Around him, everything sparkled, with lights and colors he had never seen on Earth. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed softly. Tall alien figures moved through the room, their bodies looking like walking glass sculptures. He was a long way from home. Corporal Jiho Kang had been a soldier for 6 years. He had served in the Earth Defense Force with honor. He had protected supply convoys in the asteroid belt. He had done his job well, but nothing had prepared him for this assignment. "Stand there and look professional," his commanding officer had told him. "The Velorites want to see a human guard at the embassy. It makes them feel like we're equals." Jiho knew the truth. He was here for show. The real security was handled by the Empress's personal guards. They were called the Luminar Guard, and they were impressive. Each one stood over 7 feet tall. Their armor looked like it was carved from pure light. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. They moved with perfect coordination, like dancers who had practiced for 100 years. Maybe they had. Jiho had learned that these aliens lived for hundreds of years. The Empress herself was over 300 years old. He could see her now, sitting at the head of the negotiation table. Empress Lirana IV was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Her skin had a soft glow, like moonlight on water. Her eyes were large and golden. When she spoke, everyone listened. She was talking with Ambassador Yuna now. The human ambassador was trying to negotiate better trade terms for Earth. Jiho didn't understand all the political details. He just knew that humanity needed this deal. Earth had only joined the Galactic Coalition 20 years ago. Humans were still seen as the new kids, the junior species, who didn't quite belong yet. "Your people are so young," one of the Luminar guards had said to him earlier. The alien's voice had been cold and dismissive. "You barely understand the basics of star travel. What could you possibly offer the Empire?" Jiho hadn't answered. He had just nodded politely. But the words had stung. The hours passed slowly. Jiho's feet began to ache. He watched the servers move through the crowd with trays of food and drinks. Most of them were Velorite civilians. Dressed in flowing robes, they moved silently, almost invisible. Then Jiho noticed something strange. One of the servers had a badge that looked different from the others. The colors were slightly off. The holographic seal flickered in a way it shouldn't. It was a small thing, easy to miss. But Jiho had been trained to notice small things. He waited until there was a break in the negotiations. Then he walked over to Captain Veloth, the head of the Luminar Guard. The captain was standing with 2 other guards, their crystalline faces showing no emotion. "Sir," Jiho said quietly, "I noticed something with the catering staff. One of the identification badges doesn't look right. It might be nothing, but..." Captain Veloth turned to look at him. The alien's golden eyes seemed to look right through him. "Corporal Kang," the captain said. His voice was smooth but cold. "Your species evolved as prey animals on your little world. You see threats in every shadow, because fear kept you alive. We Velorites evolved beyond such primitive paranoia millions of years ago. The staff has been thoroughly screened. There is no threat here. The staff, the fund, the funder, the funder, the funder." The other guards made a sound that might have been laughter. Jiho felt his face grow hot, but he kept his voice steady. "Yes, sir. I understand. I just thought I should mention it. Your concern is noted," Captain Veloth said, already turning away. "Perhaps focus on learning how real security is conducted. Two, 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 two." Jiho walked back to his position. His hands were clenched into fists. He took a deep breath and forced himself to relax. Getting angry wouldn't help anything. The evening continued. The negotiations ended with handshakes and formal bows. Ambassador Yuna looked tired, but happy. She had gotten some of what Earth needed. Empress Lyrana stood gracefully, her guards immediately forming a protective circle around her. "Tomorrow we will tour the embassy gardens," the Empress announced. "It will be pleasant to see how humans cultivate beauty." Everyone smiled and nodded. Jiho noticed that the strange server had disappeared. He wanted to say something again, but he knew it would be pointless. Captain Veloth had made it clear what he thought of human concerns. That night, Jiho lay in his small quarters at the embassy. He couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about that badge, about the way the server had moved. Something felt wrong. He pulled up the security protocols on his datapad. He reviewed the staff credentials again. Everything looked proper in the system. Maybe he really was being paranoid. Maybe Captain Veloth was right. But a small voice in his head kept whispering that he wasn't. Jiho finally fell asleep as the alien sun began to rise outside his window. He dreamed of Earth, of his sister Hana, of home. He dreamed of green trees and blue skies, of things that made sense. He didn't know that tomorrow, everything would change. He didn't know that tomorrow he would have to make the hardest choice of his life. He didn't know that the Luminar Guard, those perfect warriors in their shining armor, would run away when death came calling. But tomorrow would teach him all of that and more. The morning was beautiful. The embassy gardens were filled with flowers from a dozen different worlds. Purple blooms that hummed with soft music. Silver vines that moved like they were dancing. Earth roses that Ambassador Yuna had planted herself. A small piece of home in an alien place. Empress Lyrana walked slowly through the paths. Her 12 Luminar guards surrounded her in a perfect formation. Human embassy staff stood at polite distances, smiling and bowing. Jiho was positioned near the eastern wall, watching everything with tired eyes. He hadn't slept well. "These earth flowers are lovely," the Empress said, bending to smell a red rose. "Such simple beauty. Your species may be young, but you understand some things very well." Ambassador Yuna smiled with pride. "Thank you, Your Majesty. We hope to share much more with the Empire." That's when the world exploded. The first blast came from the north wall. A massive explosion that threw bodies through the air like toys. Jiho was knocked down by the shockwave. His ears rang. Smoke filled the air. He couldn't see anything for a moment. Then the shooting started. Energy weapons fired from every direction. Bright bolts of light cutting through the smoke. People were screaming, running, falling. Jiho rolled behind a stone planter and pulled out his rifle. His training took over. His hands were steady even though his heart was racing. Through the smoke, he could see figures moving. At least 20 attackers, maybe more. They wore black armor marked with a red symbol. Jiho didn't recognize it, but he knew what it meant. These people wanted the Empress dead. The Luminar Guard had reacted instantly. Their shields activated, creating walls of light around the Empress. They began moving her toward the shuttle pad, where she could be evacuated. Their weapons fired with precision. They moved like a machine, perfect and coordinated. Then came the second explosion. This one was different. It didn't destroy things with fire and force. Instead, it released a wave of invisible energy that made all the lights flicker and die. Jiho felt his skin tingle. His rifle's scope went dark for a second, then came back on. Human technology was simple enough to survive whatever that was. But the Velorites weren't so lucky. All around him, Jiho saw the Luminar Guard's armor go dark. Their shields vanished. Their weapons stopped working. They were suddenly just tall beings, in dead metal suits, holding useless tools. And then the attackers activated their sonic weapons. The sound was horrible. It wasn't loud to Jiho's ears, but he could see what it did to the Velorites. They fell to their knees, their crystal-like bodies vibrating. They screamed in pain. Ender 4. All the Velorites. The frequency was designed specifically to hurt them. Captain Veloth was the first to run. The proud commander who had mocked Jiho's concerns just yesterday dropped his useless weapon and ran toward the embassy building. His face showed pure terror. The other guards saw their captain flee. They abandoned their formation. They left the Empress standing alone in the middle of the courtyard. 12 elite warriors, 300 years of training, the finest soldiers in the Empire, all running away. Empress Lyrana stood frozen. She had never known fear before, never been in real danger. Now she was alone, and death was walking toward her from every direction. Jiho saw it all from his position. He saw the guards run. He saw the Empress standing there, her golden eyes wide with shock. He saw the assassins closing in, their weapons raised. He had a choice. His orders were clear. In case of attack, human personnel were to retreat to the underground bunker. Ambassador Yuna was already being pulled to safety by her security team. Other humans were running for cover. No one expected Jiho to do anything else. The Empress wasn't his responsibility. Every logical thought told him to run, but Jiho remembered something his father had told him when he joined the military. Being a soldier isn't about following orders when it's easy. It's about doing what's right when everything is wrong. He looked at the Empress again, at this proud, ancient being who suddenly looked lost and small, at this person who had never asked to be in danger, who had trusted her guards to protect her. The guards were gone, but Jiho wasn't. He jumped over the planter and started running. Not away from the danger, toward it, toward the Empress, toward the assassins. His boots pounded against the stone path. His rifle was up and ready. His heart was beating so fast it hurt. This is stupid. Probably, he thought back. But I'm going to die. Doing the right thing. He reached the Empress just as the first wave of assassins opened fire. He threw himself in front of her, his armor taking hits that would have killed her. Pain flashed across his shoulder, where a bolt grazed him. He ignored it. "Get behind me!" he shouted, dropping to one knee and returning fire. His rifle bucked against his shoulder. Solid bullets, old-fashioned Earth technology. But they worked. An assassin fell. Then another. The Empress didn't move. She just stared at him. "Now," Jiho yelled. "Get behind me now." Finally, she moved. She dropped down behind him, her hands shaking. Jiho pulled a small energy barrier from his belt and activated it. It wasn't much, just a standard human field shield. The Velorites probably thought it was primitive, but it was working. "Stay close," Jiho said, firing again. "When I say move, you move. Understand? Scar. Honor stand." "Why?" the Empress whispered. "Why are you here? Your people are safe. You could have run." Jiho didn't look back at her. He was too busy shooting. "Someone had to stay," he said simply. Around them, the battle raged. And Jiho knew it was only going to get worse. Jiho fired 3 more shots. 2 assassins went down. His barrier flickered as energy bolts hit it. The small device was overheating. It wouldn't last much longer. "We need to move," he said, grabbing a smoke grenade from his belt. He threw it hard, and thick gray smoke exploded across the courtyard. "Stay behind me! Step where I step! Go!" He pulled the Empress to her feet and started moving. Not toward the shuttle pad. The assassins had that covered. Not toward the main embassy building. Too many attackers between here and there. Instead, Jiho headed for the old maintenance section on the east side. It was a part of the embassy that nobody used anymore. Maybe, just maybe, they could hide there. They ran through the smoke. The Empress stumbled once, and Jiho caught her arm. She weighed almost nothing. Behind them, he could hear the assassins shouting to each other in a language he didn't understand. Weapons fired blindly into the smoke. A bolt hit the ground near Jiho's feet, melting the stone. They burst out of the smoke and into a narrow path between 2 buildings. Jiho pushed the Empress ahead of him and turned to cover their rear. 3 assassins came through the smoke. Jiho's rifle barked twice. 1 fell. The others dove for cover. "Keep moving!" Jiho shouted. His shoulder was bleeding now. The earlier graze had torn through his uniform. It hurt, but he ignored it. Pain was just information. It told him he was alive. He could deal with it later, if there was a later. They reached the maintenance building. The door was locked. Jiho shot the lock with his rifle and kicked the door open. Inside was dark and dusty. Old equipment lined the walls. The Empress hesitated at the entrance. "Inside," Jiho said. "Now." She went in. Jiho followed and sealed the door behind them. He looked around quickly. The room was small, maybe 20 feet across. There was another door at the back, but it was welded shut. No other exits. They were trapped. "This is a dead end," the Empress said. Her voice was shaking. "We will die here." "Maybe," Jiho said. He was checking his rifle. 1 magazine left. 30 bullets. Against 30 assassins. The math wasn't good. But they'll have to work for it. He started pushing heavy equipment in front of the door. The Empress watched him for a moment, then started helping. She was strong. Stronger than she looked. Together, they built a barricade. "Why did you do this?" the Empress asked as they worked. "You could have escaped. Your own people are safe. I am nothing to you." Jiho didn't stop moving. "You're a person. That's enough. But your captain dismissed you. My guards abandoned me. You owe us nothing. Less than nothing." Jiho finally stopped and looked at her. "That's not how it works. Not for humans. Not for me. I don't understand." He smiled, but it was sad. "Your guards were trained to survive. To preserve their own lives, so they could continue protecting you another day. It makes sense. Logically. But humans, we're trained different. We're trained that some things are more important than surviving." "What things?" "Doing what's right. Protecting people who can't protect themselves. Standing your ground when everyone else runs." He turned back to the barricade. "My father was a soldier. He died protecting civilians during an evacuation. He could have left. He chose to stay. That's what soldiers do. That's what humans do." The Empress was quiet for a long moment. "I have lived for 340 years, she said softly. "I have commanded armies. I have ruled an empire. But I have never seen courage like yours." "It's not courage," Jiho said. "I'm terrified. My hands are shaking. I can barely breathe. But I'm still here. That's all that matters." Outside, they could hear the assassins approaching. Lots of them. Jiho pulled out his datapad and sent a quick message to his sister Hana. She was serving on a ship in the outer colonies. She might never get it. But he wanted to try. "Tell Mom I did my job right," he typed. He put the pad away and raised his rifle. The door was starting to glow. They were cutting through it with plasma torches. He had maybe 2 minutes. The Empress moved next to him. "I am sorry," she said. "This is my fault. If I had listened to you yesterday. If I had taken your warning seriously." "Not your fault," Jiho said. "You trusted your guards. That's natural. They ran." "Yeah." "But you stayed." "Yeah, I did." The door was glowing brighter now. Jiho could see the metal starting to melt. He adjusted his position, making sure the Empress was behind him. His leg hurt. When had he injured his leg? He looked down and saw blood soaking through his pants. Shrapnel, probably from one of the explosions. He hadn't even felt it happen. The door fell inward with a crash. Smoke poured into the room. Jiho raised his rifle. "Last chance," he muttered to himself. "Make it count." The first assassin stepped through the smoke. Jiho fired. The assassin fell. Another came through. Jiho fired again. His shots were perfect, each one finding its target. Years of training, hours on the shooting range. All of it coming together now, but there were too many. For every one he dropped, 2 more appeared. His rifle clicked empty. He dropped it and pulled out his pistol. Smaller. Fewer bullets. But still a weapon. The Empress was crying behind him. Not loud, just quiet tears running down her glowing face. She had never been in a fight before. Never seen death up close. Never felt this helpless. Close your eyes, Jiho said gently. You don't need to see this. No, she said. If you can face this, so can I. Jiho almost smiled. There was courage in her after all, just a different kind. He raised his pistol as the assassins rushed forward. This was it. The end. He thought of Earth, of his sister, of his parents, of the life he wouldn't get to live, but he also thought that he had done something important. He had shown that humans could be trusted, that they had honor, that they would stand when others ran. If he died here, maybe it would matter. Maybe it would mean something. He started firing. And then, impossible and wonderful, he heard something else. New explosions. Different weapons. Human weapons. Voices shouting in Korean. Contact. Multiple hostiles. Engaging. Reinforcements had arrived. Jiho almost laughed. Almost. He was too tired. Too hurt. But he kept his pistol raised and kept protecting the Empress. Because that was his job. That was what humans did. They stayed until the end. The room exploded with sound and light. Human soldiers poured through the door, their weapons firing in controlled bursts. The assassins tried to fight back, but they were caught between Jiho's position and the new arrivals. It was over in seconds. Clear. Someone shouted. Room is clear. Captain Daehyun Park pushed through the smoke. He was a big man, with a scarred face and kind eyes. When he saw Jiho, still standing with his pistol raised, those eyes went wide. Jiho, Daehyun said, you can lower your weapon. It's over. Jiho tried to lower his arm. It wouldn't move. His muscles had locked up. He couldn't feel his fingers anymore. Medic! Daehyun shouted. I need a medic now. A young soldier rushed forward. Suho was his name. He was good at his job. He caught Jiho as he started to fall. I've got you. I've got you. Stay with me. Jiho's vision was getting fuzzy. There was a lot of blood. His blood. When had he started bleeding so much? The Empress, he mumbled. She's fine, Suho said, pressing something against Jiho's wounds. It hurt. Everything hurt. Thanks to you. She's perfectly fine. Good, Jiho said. His eyes were closing. That's good. Hey, stay awake, Suho urged. Come on, Corporal, stay with me. But Jiho was so tired. He had been running on fear and duty for so long. Now that it was over, his body was shutting down. He heard voices around him, felt people moving him, but it all seemed far away. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the Empress. She was kneeling beside him, her golden eyes full of tears. Her hand touched his face, and it was warm. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, brave human. Then, nothing. Jiho woke up 3 weeks later in a hospital bed. The room was white and clean and quiet. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. Then, the memories came flooding back. The attack. The fight. The guards running. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his entire body. Don't move, you idiot. Jiho turned his head. His sister, Hana, was sitting in a chair next to the bed. She looked tired, her uniform wrinkled. But she was smiling. Hana, he said. His voice was rough. What are you doing here? They gave me emergency leave when they heard what happened. I got here 2 weeks ago. She leaned forward and took his hand. You scared me, big brother. The doctors said you almost died. Almost doesn't count, Jiho said, trying to smile. You lost a lot of blood. The plasma burn on your shoulder was severe. You had shrapnel in your leg. Internal bleeding. The medic said another 5 minutes, and you would have been gone. Jiho looked down at himself. He was covered in bandages. How bad? He asked. You'll recover fully. But you're going to have impressive scars. Hana squeezed his hand. Do you know what you did? Do you know what people are saying? Hana, I was just doing my job. No, you did way more than your job. Hana pulled out a datapad and showed him the screen. Look, it was a news feed. The headline read, Human soldier stands alone as elite guards flee. Below it was a video. Jiho watched himself running toward the Empress. Watched himself fighting. The footage must have come from the embassy security cameras. It's gone viral across the entire galaxy, Hana said. Billions of beings have seen this. You're famous, Jiho. Everyone is talking about the human who stayed when gods ran. Jiho felt uncomfortable. The Luminar guards aren't gods. They just weren't prepared for that attack. They ran, Hana said flatly. All 12 of them, including their captain. They left the Empress to die. And you, a human they had mocked and dismissed, saved her life. The door opened. Ambassador Yuna walked in, followed by Captain Daehyun. They both looked serious. Corporal Kang, Yuna said formally. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a shuttle, ma'am. She smiled slightly. That's an accurate description. I wanted to thank you personally for what you did. You saved Empress Lyrana's life. You also saved Earth's reputation in the coalition. The political ramifications of your actions are enormous. I wasn't thinking about politics, ma'am. I know. That's what makes it so powerful. Yuna sat down in another chair. The Velarite Empire is in chaos right now. The Luminar Guard has been disbanded in disgrace. Captain Veloth tried to defend his actions by saying they were following proper military doctrine about preserving forces for future missions. But nobody cares about doctrine when there's video of them running away while their empress faced death. What will happen to them? Jiho asked. They'll be tried by Velarite military courts. Probably stripped of their ranks and honors. Some might even be imprisoned. Yuna paused. The Empire is embarrassed. They thought they were superior to humans in every way. Now, they have to admit that a human showed greater courage than their finest warriors. Captain Daehyun spoke up. It's changed things, Jiho. All across the coalition, people are re-evaluating humanity. We're getting requests from dozens of species asking for human security consultants. The phrase, human loyal, is trending on every network. It means someone who won't abandon you when things get bad. Jiho didn't know what to say. He had just tried to do the right thing. He never imagined it would cause all this. The Empress wants to see you, Yuna said. She's been visiting every day while you were unconscious. She's waiting outside now. Are you up for a visitor? Yes, ma'am. The ambassador and captain left. A moment later, Empress Lyrana entered. She looked different somehow. Less remote. More real. She moved to his bedside and looked down at him with those golden eyes. Hello, Jiho, she said softly. Your Majesty, Jiho said, trying to bow his head. Please, no formality. Not after what we've been through. She sat down carefully. I have been waiting for you to wake up. I have many things to say. You don't need to thank me again. I'm not here to thank you. I'm here to apologize. Jiho blinked. For what? For my arrogance. For dismissing you. For believing that my guards were superior to you simply because they were Velarite and you were human. I was wrong. Completely and utterly wrong. She looked down at her hands. I have lived for 340 years. I thought I understood everything, but you taught me that I understood nothing about true courage. Your Majesty, I have disbanded the Luminar Guard. I am creating something new, something better, and I want to ask you something. She looked back up at him. When you recover, would you help me train a new generation of guards? Not just in tactics, but in what it means to truly protect someone, in human concepts of duty and honor. Jiho was surprised. I'm just a corporal, Your Majesty. I'm not qualified to train Imperial guards. You are the most qualified person in the galaxy, she said firmly. You proved that when it mattered most. Will you help me? Jiho thought about it. Then he nodded. Yes, Your Majesty, I will. She smiled, and it transformed her face. Thank you. And please, when we're alone, call me Lorana. We've been through too much for titles. As she left, Jiho lay back in his bed. His body ached. His future was uncertain. But somehow, he felt good. He had done something that mattered, something that would change how the galaxy saw humanity. Sometimes, he thought, the bravest thing you can do is just stay when everyone else runs. 10 years passed. Major Jiho Kang stood in the memorial garden. His dress uniform perfectly pressed. The scars on his shoulder were hidden beneath the fabric, but he could still feel them. They ached when it rained. They reminded him of that day every time he put on his shirt. He was older now. Gray touched his temples. Lines marked his face. But his eyes were still sharp, still watchful. A soldier's eyes. Around him, the garden was beautiful. It had been built on the exact spot where the attack happened, where the Luminar Guard had run, where Jiho had made his choice. Now it was a place of peace, with flowers from Earth and Valara growing side by side. It's a good ceremony, a voice said beside him. Jiho turned. Empress Lirana stood there, wearing simple robes instead of her usual imperial dress. She came to these ceremonies every year. She never missed one. They did well. Jiho agreed. They were talking about the new guards, human and Velarite soldiers who had just completed their training that Jiho had helped design. Do you remember the first class? Lirana asked. How angry some of them were. The Velarites didn't want to learn from a human. The humans didn't trust the Velarites. I remember, Jiho said. That first year was difficult, but you never gave up. You showed them that the best warriors aren't the strongest or the fastest. They're the ones who will stand when others run. Jiho looked at the new guards. They stood together now, human and Velarite side by side. No longer separate species, but brothers and sisters who had trained together, suffered together, learned together. It wasn't just me, Jiho said. It took a lot of people to make this work. Always so modest. Lirana smiled. That's very human of you. Over the past 10 years, things had changed in ways Jiho never expected. Earth had become one of the most respected members of the Galactic Coalition. Not because humans were the smartest or the most advanced, but because they had proven something valuable. They were reliable. They were loyal. They stayed. Human security consultants worked across the galaxy now. Human soldiers served alongside alien forces. The phrase, human loyal, had become the highest compliment you could give someone. It meant they would never abandon you. But it hadn't been easy for Jiho personally. The fame had been hard. Everyone wanted to talk to him, interview him, hear his story. He had given hundreds of speeches, written articles, done everything he could to help Earth's reputation. But the hardest part was the nightmares. Even now, 10 years later, he sometimes woke up in the middle of the night. In his dreams, he was back in that maintenance room. The door was melting. The assassins were coming. And this time, help didn't arrive. His sister Hana had helped him through the worst of it. She was a captain now, serving on Earth's newest starship. She called him every week, without fail. The scars aren't just on the outside, she had told him once, but they prove you survived. Be proud of them. A young Velarite guard approached them. She was only 50 years old, barely an adult by Velarite standards. She moved nervously, clearly intimidated. Major Kang, she said, her voice shaking slightly. For what? Jiho asked gently. For showing us what courage really means. I joined the guard because of you, because of what you did. She straightened up, trying to look professional. My name is Kira. I watched the video of that day 100 times. Every time I wanted to quit training, I watched it again. It reminded me why I was here. Jiho felt embarrassed. I just did what needed to be done. That's what makes it so special, Kira said. You didn't do it for glory. You didn't do it because someone ordered you. You did it because it was right. She bowed deeply. Thank you for teaching us that honor isn't about who you are. It's about what you do. After she left, Lirana touched Jiho's arm. You've changed an entire empire, you know. 1,000 years from now, Velarite children will learn about the day a human taught us about true courage. I hope they also learn that your guards weren't cowards, Jiho said. They were just trained wrong. Trained to survive at any cost. That's not cowardice. It's just the wrong lesson. You're very kind to say that. Most people aren't so forgiving. Most people didn't stand next to you in that room, Jiho said. They didn't see how scared you were, but how you stayed anyway. You showed courage too, Lirana, just a different kind. They walked together through the garden. Other people were there, but they kept a respectful distance. Everyone knew that the Empress and the Major liked to walk alone during these ceremonies. Do you ever regret it? Lirana asked. What happened that day changed your whole life. You became famous. You had to give up your privacy. You carry scars and nightmares. If you could go back, would you make a different choice? Jiho thought about it. Really thought about it. The question deserved an honest answer. No, he said finally. I wouldn't change it. Because of what I did, humanity earned respect. We proved we belong in the coalition. Millions of humans have better lives now because of that day. How could I regret that, even though it cost you so much? Even though. He smiled. Besides, I gained things too. I helped train some of the finest guards in the galaxy. I made friends across dozens of species. And I got to know you, Lirana. That's not nothing, she smiled back. They had become real friends over the years. Not Empress and soldier, just two people who had shared something terrible and survived it together. The ceremony was ending. The new guards were being dismissed. Families were congratulating them. Jiho saw human parents hugging their children. Velarite elders placing crystals of honor on young warriors. Everyone together. Everyone equal. The galaxy is better now, Lirana said quietly. Because one human decided to stay. The galaxy is better because people learned from it, Jiho corrected. I was just the lesson. As the sun set on Velara Prime, casting everything in golden light, Jiho felt at peace. His shoulder ached. His leg hurt. His dreams were still troubled sometimes, but he had done something that mattered. Something that would last. A young human guard walked past, laughing with his Velarite partner. They were discussing where to get dinner. Normal things. Normal friendship. That's what Jiho had fought for. Not glory. Not fame. Just the chance for different species to see each other as equals. I should go, Jiho said. I have new recruits starting tomorrow. They'll need a tough first day. Don't be too hard on them, Lirana said. I'll be exactly as hard as they need, he bowed formally. Until next year, Your Majesty. Until next year, my friend. As Jiho walked away, he thought about that day 10 years ago. The day the guards ran, and he stayed. The day everything changed. People called him a hero now. They wrote songs about him. They told stories. But Jiho didn't feel like a hero. He just felt like someone who had done his job. Who had seen someone in danger and helped them. That's what humans did. That's what made them special. Not because they were stronger than other species. Not because they were smarter, or faster, or more advanced. But because when the moment came, when the choice had to be made, humans stayed. They stayed when gods ran. They stayed when logic said to flee. They stayed because some things were more important than survival. Things like duty. Like honor. Like doing what's right, even when it's hard. Jiho looked up at the alien sky, at the strange stars that would never be quite like home. Then he smiled and headed back to base. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. new students to train, new lessons to teach. But tonight, he could rest. He had done his part. He had shown the galaxy what humans could be. And in the end, that was enough.